partnership or supply are some of the best, you know. Yeah, there's three rules. My mom is that it's butter, and butter.
Let's go.
You can do clarify. I just don't usually bother. It's really hard to do right. I've done it once for a skin. Well, where I couldn't decipher the difference. No. So I was like, so it probably would be good to get going. Where the birds live. It's just good. Yeah, they're cool. It's the first aerodynamic shoot. Yeah. Yeah, but you do those things actually very similar to cycling. It's something that I don't really, you don't appreciate the aerodynamics until you start cycling. And you'll draft for the first time. I did. Like you're both pedaling your hard side down and behind, and you tuck in behind them, and you have to bridge oral tube compression, and it's that much energy at that speed. And they say around 12 miles an hour is about the speed where, for cycling purposes, where weight and rolling resistance becomes secondary, become less important. And they're not fast. 12 miles an hour is well within the range of 5 minutes.
Right.
All of your weeks.
How are you?
I'm good, man.
That's generally because of just it's like opinions where whatever they're given.
Someone wants to come along and take that from me. They can take it. I get it. You do it out.
Yeah, and they stick with brand and stuff like that. Yeah.
How are you guys typically running here? There, you think, or should we expect some trickling in still?
Maybe.
All right. Well, thank you all. Thank you for coming here, and thank you for allowing me some of your time. What I want to talk about today is weaknesses of the teenage runner. Tim actually was behind you there, was kind enough to get me into this, and this is a subject that's kind of near to our heart. Lucas Martin and me are Willem Verweij. We are billed here as the speakers. Lucas is only here on video. He does the majority of our students, of our patient care when it comes to runners, and he sees a fair bit of teenage runners. So we see the problems that we have there, and I think a lot of that is preventable. And I'd like to share some insights with you there. So, talking about the weaknesses, let me see. This was earlier. So, weakness of the teenage runner. So what are we talking about? Weaknesses, certain muscle weaknesses, pure strength, endurance, maybe a little bit about flexibility as well, but primarily about weaknesses there. Because they often lead to decreased performance. So the students you think could run a little bit faster, have a better season, and oftentimes lead to injury as well. So who here had an athlete on their team who missed a meet or missed a practice to injury here? So that's pretty much 100% there, right? Or a kid that didn't perform as well as you expected. You thought that if they just had a little bit more gas in the tank, would they last there? So a couple there as well. So what kind of injuries did you see?
Hamstring.
Hamstring, okay.
Hip flexor.
Hip flexor, okay. Hip flexor. It's very common one, hip flexor. Anything else?
Shin splints.
Shin splints. That one. Yeah. And then a lot of murmurs there, so I guess there's more shin splints in the room. Anything else?
Foot problem. Arch problem.
Arch problems. Okay. All right. So I got a kind of a list of our top 8, I think, and most of those are on there as well.
Groin.
Sorry.
Groin.
Groin. Okay. So what do you think caused them?
Imbalances.
No. Okay. All right.
Guess the shin splints not running before the season.
Okay. Yeah.
Mechanics.
Mechanics. Yep. I love the way you talk here. That's some of the stuff we're going to be talking about. Do you feel like it could have been prevented? You said not running before the season, so that's one. Any other ideas?
Some not so much unless you actually notice how bad their gaits are off. Getting them into therapy to take care of that before you get them into any kind of longer distance workouts or anything like that.
Put you to the choir. So this is what this is exactly what I wanted to talk about. Talk about what some common injuries are. Say high school runners, but we see middle school runners as well. What are the causes, the mechanisms of injury, and what do we do? And then I want to give you a pre-season 6-pack. Actually, it's a 7-pack of exercises. So that's the Baker 6-pack, I guess, the Brewer 6-pack. And so I got some videos here. You can take notes like mad, but what I wanted to do is upload them to YouTube and email them to all of you. So if you are interested in that, got this long list there. So if you want to write down your name, your school is not necessary, but it's kind of just interested in that. If there's anything particular that you're interested in as well, you can write that down there, and I'll see what I can do. No, but anyway, so within the next week, I should be able to get those videos to you. So with links, and you can share them with the athletes as well. So that's my intention here for now. So most common injuries that we see: patellofemoral or other knee pain, hip pain, wherever it is, on the front, on the back, or on the side. Especially you see it on the side and the front area. Shin splints. There's a lot of misconception about what shin splints are. What's just a shin splint to you is not necessarily a shin splint to the next person. But when I'm thinking of shin splints, I'm thinking of pain on the inside of the shin here. There's also pain on the front. That's some people call shin splints. I call it something different. But it's, the original shin splints is the pain on the inside there, and we'll get into a little bit more. Back pain, surprising amount of back pain, even in those younger runners there. You're way too young for that stuff. Plantar fasciitis, so that's your arch pain that you were talking about, and stress fractures. You had anybody with stress fractures on your team? No. So that's a tricky one there. So, all right. So why do running injuries occur? Previous injury is the #1 predictor of getting an injury. So somebody who had a hamstring injury is 9 times more likely than the person who hasn't had a hamstring injury to get another one. So some things need to be addressed, whether that is sufficient healing or if it's addressing imbalances. And then you can kind of curb that trend a little bit there. Running experience, You may have had that amazingly talented kid that never ran before, gets on your team and takes off like a rocket and goes, but then gets injured as well. Or maybe just somebody who just decided they wanted to be runners and get hurt there. So that's a big one. Increase in mileage, too much too fast. Whether that is something driven by the program or driven by themselves. We saw a couple over the summer, kids that were going from middle school to high school, and like, you better step it up. The opposite of the kids that don't run during the season, before the season, ran mega mileage there and got hurt doing that. So sometimes it's just, they kind of make up their own program, and you get into trouble there. Competitive motive, being on the team, staying on the team, making the team. We've got a big meet coming on. Just want to beat their record. You kind of run through pain sometimes, things that really shouldn't be run through. Like running does come with some pain here and there, you know that, but sometimes it's time to kind of take a break and or at least change something up. But if they're really driven, they may not tell anybody what's going on and just keep on going. Poor dynamic limb or trunk alignment, and I got a nice example of that. It's a picture of a girl that we had in our practice. That's almost every fault in one picture there. So that's an interesting one to look at. Excessive, prolonged, inadequate pronation. Pronation is a term that's thrown around a lot. It's a term, just saying, really. Pronation is basically just a flattening of the foot, right? It's not a bad thing. It's okay when the foot flattens. It needs to flatten. That's how you store some energy, and then you continue. Come out of, you go from pronation to supination, and you propel yourself forward there. Now, if the pronation is excessive, that can be too much, or it's too quick. We'll get to that as well. Going too quick, or you go into pronation and never come out of it. Then you've got some issues. But pronation is a good thing. It should be pronation. Asymmetries, so imbalances, but also asymmetries, like you have one hip that is super stable and another hip that you say, if you have two of those, that would be perfectly normal. But if you have one that is super stable and one is a little bit more flexible in the run, then that is still considered abnormal. You're still loading one side of your body more. Running is one of those sports that ideally you have things just nice and symmetrical, left is right. It's not like a tennis player, like with one big forearm and one small one. Running should be as symmetrical as possible. Poor form, low cadence. I'm not sure if cadence is something that you guys look at a lot, but it's an interesting one as well. And I put limited flexibility in brackets. Not as often an issue in the young age, although we do see some hamstring tightness. But I think that is often not a structural tightness of that hamstring, but because other muscles are not doing the job. Say butt muscles are not doing the job, and they turn there, which is really the cannon of your body. Your butt muscles are pushing you forward. That's why you see those football players. You don't see a football player with a flat butt. That's really a slow football player. That doesn't work. So you do see runners with relatively flat butts, amazingly. But they're running with a hamstring, so that hamstring gets jacked up big time, and that tightens it up. And then you're not so flexible over there. So, and that can be used for overuse, getting you your hamstring strains, etc. One thing, it's kind of out of my scope, but it is something to pay attention to, especially when you're talking about stress fractures, and certainly with the high school girls, something to look at, the female triad. So the triad is menstrual irregularity, eating disorder, or disordered eating, not necessarily eating disorder, because sometimes it's like you have the more psychologically driven eating disorders, but this is more like a performance driven eating disorder. So they don't have all the other things that you see with bulimia or anorexia. but they behave the same way. And that leads ultimately to low BMD, which is bone mineral density. So that's a problem. So it leads to osteopenia and increases your chances of stress fractures. So that's something to look out for. Again, it's not something we deal with, but we'll bring it to the primary care doctor or a dietitian, etc. So it's more common than you think. Prevalence of eating disorders in female athletes, you're talking about elite female athletes, 60 to 47%. That's a really wide range, but it is big versus 1 to 10% in the general population. So, yeah. So, bradycardia comes with it, so low heartbeat, orthostatic hypertension. They'll also get up and a little dizzy there. Those are things that kind of give it away. Hypothermia. And so one of the things would be that the primary care doctor should do is get a blood test their estrogen, vitamin D, calcium, etc. So let's go back to what's more in our wheelhouse here, something that we can directly affect. So the dynamic limb and trunk alignment and the excessive motion, etc. So let's take a quick look at the anatomy of the knee. This is here. This is the kneecap, and right over there and over there. And oftentimes, when they refer to the kneecap, as it is a train running on the track. So the track being this groove of the femur, the thigh bone, and then you've got that kneecap running in there. So, especially talking about knees because knees are such a common injury there, right? And then when the problems arise, when there's pain there, oftentimes we attribute that to the kneecap, the train getting off the track, so tracking outward. Being because there's not enough strength on the inside, the VMO, the name for VMO strengthening, or the IT band being too tight or pulling things out. But in my experience, and there certainly is a group of runners where that's the problem, but a lot of times instead the problem is really that the track moves under the train. So the train is going straight, but the track moves, and now you're getting those same problems. So, and that's where I'm talking about trunk or leg alignment, there, dynamic limb alignment. When the foot hits the ground, that foot kind of rolls in, the knee wants to follow, the hip rotates in there, so now the track is moving and the kneecap wants to track out. Now that causes more compression over there, puts all kinds of odd tension on the inside, and that causes pain when you do that over and over again. So that is the problem in many cases. So some of it can be addressed by working on stabilization of the hip, working on some muscles in the foot, etc. But the knee gets the bad rap, like you get a bad knee. The knee is actually just a victim of the situation. So. Okay, here's the grow we're talking about. So we do video analysis on the runners. If you look here, so this is landing on the left foot, and you see how our hip just drops a little bit, 5 degrees. That's actually on the stable side. Up to like between 3 and 8 degrees is considered normal. If you look at this side, this drops way down. Big difference between those two. And it's definitely outside the norm. You can see what she's doing with the shoulders. The shoulder moving over to the right a little bit here. You can also look at her knee. You see how this knee is relatively straight. This knee has got more of a bend inward. So she happens to have hip pain. But she might as well have had knee pain or shin splints, or all of that. So a lot of those things, the shin splints, are a very similar problem to the knee. The mechanism behind it is very similar. So it's just which portion is breaking down, which portion is getting the trouble. In her case, it was the hip. So it repeated coming down there, jerking on those muscles over and over again, getting some compression, pulling on that IT band, but also those hip muscles that pull your leg out, they stabilize like that. After a while, they didn't like it anymore. So that's a problem. So that is alignment. So the plantar fasciitis falls in that. So when the foot kind of drops in repeatedly, stretching that plantar fascia over and over, that hurts. Falling in, all right, this really grubby old model here. Here is the muscle that is responsible for the shin splints. It runs right here, goes all the way up to here, not too far below the knee. Runs right here, and then it runs under the foot there. So that is the active stabilizer, one of the big active stabilizers of the arch of the foot. So that is the one, as your foot is driving in, is really doing its best to kind of pull that back up again. But you cannot do it too much, not too often. It's really not such a big muscle. It's just a tiny little thing. So those all fall under the same problem there. Okay. So there's alignment. Okay. That's a rubber band. So alignment is one. Also speed. How quickly is that leg coming down? Rolling in, that foot flattening out. If you want to break a rubber band, if you want to stretch a rubber band as far as you can kind of go slow, right? And you can get further. If you want to break it, do it more quickly. So muscles are not exactly rubber bands, but the same principle applies. You can break things down quicker if you just pull on them quicker. Hope it didn't burn anybody's eyes out. Still on the laser beam there. All right. So this should. That should help. All right. Not a big running fall. Angle of impact. A lot of talk is about heel strikes. I don't care about heel strike. It's fine to heel strike. It's fine to midfoot strike. It's fine to forefoot strike. What it really is about is where does your foot strike in relationship to your center of mass. If you end up landing with your leg way out, that's a lot of impact. It's a lot of braking force, a lot of shock to absorb. So that goes all through those bones. The muscles have to work much harder to kind of absorb that. So that is really the big issue. And if you see elite runners that are heel striking, but their foot, when the foot hits the ground, it is just about under their center of mass, and that's absolutely fine. So it's more efficient to land over your center of mass because you don't get that braking force in it all the time, so you go faster, but also it just makes your body last a lot longer. So, so you can forget about, as far as I'm concerned, forget about heel striking or midfoot striking or toe striking. Strike wherever you want to strike, as long as it's in the right position under your body. And that brings me to one of the big things we do for that. We mentioned cadence. I saw you nodding earlier there with cadence. If you have a slow cadence, you have the time to reach out and get that leg all the way in front of you. If you speed up your cadence, more steps per minute, you don't have time to reach out that far. So automatically, that fixes so many things if you work on your cadence a little bit there. And there's a couple of things you can do about that. And I'll get through it with the exercises as well. So, that's heel striking. Too far in front. So, those are kind of the things, the mechanisms that lead to injuries. What I want to talk about now is some exercises, and I want to take you guys through some exercises. Maybe we can do some here. I think we can also go across the gym to go through some of them. But when you talk about exercises for runners, you want those exercises to kind of feel and taste and look like running, or at least take certain components of it. So I got 4 areas that I think you should build into an exercise program for runners. So the first one is running as fast. So I purposely took pictures instead of having a big slide, just written stuff down. I want you to just remember those slides when you go home. If nothing else, remember the next 4 slides. Just those pictures you could fill in the story yourself. So ideally we address all those 4 areas in the training program. So it's fast. Even when you're a slow runner, still your limbs are moving fast. relatively fast. Much faster than sitting in the gym and just kind of doing leg extensions or leg curls. So when you do exercises, you want them to move fast as well. And cadence it could be a good guidance for certain exercises. Set a metronome. You can get those running metronomes. I got one for 99 cents on my phone. There's some free ones as well. And set them for the tempo that you want, or at least for a tempo that's challenging for you, and do your exercises at that speed if you can. So that's number one. Number two, running is alternatingly a one-legged activity. So it's fine to do exercises two-legged, but progress towards one-legged where you can. One-legged, weight bearing. So it's starting to get a little harder to find explosive ones with animals. Explosive. So with explosive, I mean this acceleration. It's not one constant speed, but have some getting your body from standstill or from slow speed to high speed. So build that into your exercise routine there. All right. Then the next one, it became even harder. Well, anybody want to guess what this is? It's absorption. shock absorption. It was a long shot, but it was hard. This is what stock photo came up with there. So absorbing shock. So speed, so it's fast. One-legged, explosiveness, and shock absorption. So that means some might call it eccentric exercises where you take on weight and the muscle works as it is getting a little bit longer there. So that's it. So moving on to the pre-season six-pack. That is, yeah, I think it is 7 of them. So I want to show a couple of videos, and I've got you guys for another 24 minutes, so we're doing good. So for any questions or any remarks? Does it make sense here? Yeah? Okay. So, 4 exercises. None of them are brilliantly innovative exercises, like, oh my God, how did you come up with that? But it is all the way how you apply them. And so if you go through these, if this is something you share with your runners during their off season, but even during their regular season, it will make a difference. Ideally, it's something that they do 3 days a week, work up to a low level of fatigue. I don't necessarily specify do so many sets of 10 or so many sets of 20. They're all kind of different. In the email I sent you, maybe I'll try to give you a little bit more guidance in that if that's something you like. But if this is something they do, it will make a difference. I would be amazed if you would not have a couple of athletes that you see being better prepared and improving their form. So, and again, these are exercises. Some of them are a little higher level than what we start our clients with, because a lot of them come in injured. So these are not necessarily exercises for kids that are injured, but more for kids to really condition them and get them ready. So, let me see. And here's Lucas Martin, the guy that was my partner in crime when it comes to running. So, I need the wall. Okay, I'll let you look at it first. So this does a couple of things here. So, provides leg speed. So you can work on your cadence there. Set this to a metronome. You see how he's doing it like in a 1, 2, 3 tempo. 1, 2, 3, pause, 1, 2, 3, pause, 1, 2, 3, pause. So working on those hip flexors, getting them conditioned to move the leg forward fast. The other thing that he's doing, he is at a forward lean there. Ideally, running happens from a forward lean from your ankles, not from your hips. This is very common. especially when runners start getting a little fatigued, they start leaning more forward, more here more. That turns up your butt muscles, turns on your hamstring muscles. So now those hamstring muscles get overworked, they fatigue more quickly. That's where you get hamstring pulls, or at least where you get the muscles to really get fired up and become an issue. So there's some core strength in there as well. He's keeping his body nicely aligned, in a nice straight line here. So you want to get form is important there. Don't get sloppy. Really think about being tall. Stand just far enough away from the wall that if you lean forward, that with your straight arms can reach it. And then you back again. There you go. So it's core, leg speed, but also the foot strike. So his foot is striking more under his center of mass there. So that is one of the other things that you're working on. Okay. We've got plenty of time, I think, to get through all that. Is this something you guys want to try?
Just a question about something like this. You know, I think a lot of us would like an idea of how many, how often, how many reps, or what should we be looking for so we can make this into a program.
Okay.
Or build this into it.
Yep. So obviously, you want to build some endurance in doing that. Part of it is a coordination exercise. So doing that for a minute could be enough to make some changes there. It's also, we should try it. You find out that it's pretty taxing. It gets you tired pretty quickly as well. So I would start out with doing it for 30 seconds straight. Set a little timer, 30 seconds, boom, 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 boom. After 30 seconds, take a little break and do it again. And do 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds of 30 seconds. So spend 2 minutes plus a little break on this particular exercise. So I'll make sure that in the email I'll send you guys around that I'll specify that a little bit more. Do you want to try this one? This is the only one that we need a wall for, so this might be a good place to do it. Or no, yeah.
Just before we do that, do you have any like prescribed methods for testing for flexibility or weaknesses in certain areas? Like, is there something you can do to test for, I don't know, favoring one side or the other, relative hip flexors, flexibility, hamstring, quad imbalances, and stuff like that?
Okay. Yeah. In the clinic we have our stretches, kind of like really a physical exam there, see if there's tightness of the hip flexors versus the rectus here, quads, or the IT band and the tensor fasciae lata that attaches to that. So there's certain stretches for that. There's also to get a quick idea, we go through a functional movement screen typically, which is I'm standing up, right, leaning over backwards with the hands up, hands on the hips, doing it on one leg, and see. And there's certain things we look for. See if we get that, if the hip moves forward, to see if the shoulder blades come over the heel, etc. So it is somewhat involved to do that, but that's we do look at that, and then after that we put them on the treadmill, video them, and then kind of put those things together. So it's offhand, it's a hard one to kind of do on your own. If you have somebody if you have a student that you're particularly kind of concerned about, we can somehow talk you through that person one-on-one as well, right? Maybe by video or right in the neighborhood. But yeah, so I'm kind of taking with these exercises, addressing basically the major faults there that we see. So there's a little bit of everything in there. Not sure if that quite answers your question satisfactorily, but yeah, I mean, that is what we do. But it's kind of, I think, hard to do on your own,
Right.
just sometimes everything covered in a couple of minutes here. So that is that one. And I think ultimately we really want to kind of do them. So maybe we can do them next door in the gym there. So that's just kind of, I'll just demonstrate, have Luke demonstrate, and then we'll go over and just kind of bang them out over there. So here's the mountain climber. It's kind of like a dynamic plank there. Leg speed, and core strength. So it's kind of a progression over the high knees at the wall. We could critique his form a little bit there. It's a little bit high. Could be more flat. And that's a really quick video there. The basics the same thing. And I like to do these kind of exercises, go back to like how much intensity do you want there? 30 seconds. 30 seconds, go hard, do a little break, and do it again. 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of that. Let's see how it works. So, so again, there's one way you want to use the metronome. Cadence-wise, like elite runners, they say run do about 180 steps per minute. I don't see many people come in running at 180 steps per minute. Surprising amount is just kind of like 160, high 150s even.
Is that across different distances, or is that some kind of a universal?
It's somewhat universal. If you talk about sprinters, it's a little different. But long distance runners, whether you're talking about a 5K or a marathon, those steps tend to be falling in around that.
We're talking 600 meters to 1,500 meters, let's say.
Yeah. Then you're looking for a little bit higher. Yeah. So.